Hi, my name is John.
And I'm Lloyd.
And we are the hosts of Pint of Comics, a podcast all about pop culture. Lloyd, what do we do sometimes on Pint of Comics that people might want to know about before they listen?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers and sometimes we swear like sailors.
So, if you're okay with that stuff, listen in and enjoy the show.
Operator, give me the police.
They can't exist. Nobody knows except me and Sakura.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Pint of Comics. I'm John.
And I'm Joe.
Joe's here with me tonight, and this episode, whether you like what we talk about or not, might actually be Joe's fault. This is a SFA 80s, science fiction, fantasy, action 80s. We've been doing these lately. We talk about B, C, D, E level 80s films that fall into those three categories, and we did a few online over the summer. We did Space Hunter, we did Steel Dawn with Patrick Swayze, and Best of the Best with Eric Roberts. And we started doing them on the audio show. And I think I said, Joe, why don't you pick one? You know, because you've been filling in, doing the co-host duties. You said the Octagon, right? Because I didn't say the Octagon.
Oh no, I definitely said the Octagon.
You said the Octagon.
Yes,
okay, so
yes.
I want to know where to. I want to know where to place the blame. You know, I think I might have said let's do something in the Chuck Norris vein, but I don't know if my brain would have gone to the Octagon because I've never seen the Octagon before. We got Julio here from a really great podcast called The Contrarians. Julio, how are you doing today?
Much better now that I just realized that you guys don't love this movie. Because I was afraid that I was walking into a scenario where I was going to be a Debbie Downer and it was going to be Tom Hanks, like, you know, the GIF from Big, where he's like, I don't get it. Like, I thought that was going to be, but no, I think that we're closer to being on the same page. So,
well, remember, Joe did pick it, so we don't know where he falls on it yet. I
can see him. His camera's on, and he doesn't seem pretty proud of his pick. So,
okay,
wait and see. Wait and see.
Wait and see. Yeah, you're always surprises here on Pint of Comics. Julio, your show, The Contrarians, 8 years running. You and Alex have been doing this for. I enjoy the show. I'm not going to try to explain your format. I want you to do it because you guys, amongst all shows, you guys have a lot going on in one episode. Like there's segments and portions and parts, and just go ahead. Tell everybody out there what it's all about.
See, now it sounds more complicated than it really is. It's actually pretty simple. There's two halves. The first half, we just pick a movie that's either fresh or rotten in the tomato meter for Rotten Tomatoes, and we argue against that score. So if it's a fresh movie, we talk about it as if it was a rotten movie, as if it was a bad movie. And if it's a rotten movie, we talk about it as if it was a great movie. We usually trying to be pretty comedic about it. No, we're not very serious. We're just being very exaggerated. Initially, just kind of, it was a way for us to make fun of just movie critics in general and how they can just bend over backwards to make something sound really good or really bad. But then the second half of the show is where we actually become movie critics, so to speak. We actually tell you how we really feel. And it's more of a more serious conversation. If we were to talk about the Octagon on our show, I checked, I think it's at 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. So the first half of the show would be us talking about how amazing this movie is and how it's great. And then the second half of the show would be Alex and I finding out how the other one actually feels about it. That's pretty much it. It's not that complicated. Two halves. That's it.
Well, two halves, but then also you guys have like the series you guys do where like you guys will do a whole run or a whole summer of Winona Ryder movies. You guys are currently doing the Muppathon, I think is what you're calling it, the Muppet episodes, which I haven't started yet, but I'm psyched about because I'm a big Muppets fan. So yeah, it's just you guys have chock full of content, and your shows you guys are definitely with the two halves. you guys have one of the longer podcasts out there, which I have no problem with, because we run 2 hours sometimes here. I think that's really cool that you guys have so much to say about these movies. I remember the first one I listened to, and I really liked it a lot, and I was impressed, was your Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Maybe I listened to it maybe a year ago, and I think it was like a little bit older than that at that point, but that was my introduction.
Yeah, that was actually our Haddonfield Nights series. Alex talked me into actually, because I talked him into doing the Summer of Winona. He then said, okay, well, now we have to do most of the Halloween movies, because there's some fresh, some rotten ones, and then some in between. So we had fun with that. Yeah, that was interesting. Well, you are a horror fan, so I imagine you were on Alex's camp there. I'm
like a mid-level horror guy. I've fallen in with horror people. We've got our buddy Scary Larry, who's a big horror guy, so we do the episodes here. I like good horror. I like some really cheesy bad horror, but I'm not the guy, like, I'm not running out. Well, nobody, I don't know if anybody's running out to the theaters right now, but like Scream or Scream 5, like, it's like all over Twitter and everything, and I'm like, I don't really care. I don't get it. But that's just, I can wait. This is not like date night one. I don't have to go Thursday night to see Scream 5, but I get it. I get it. So, Julio, I got some questions for you. 5 questions before we start talking about Joe's pick of the Octagon. And these are just little personality gauging questions. So feel free to answer at any length you want to. Number 1, you live in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
Right? And you were originally from Peru. When did you come to the States?
2002.
2002.
I want to say.
How old were you?
I was 22. I was starting my 20s. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I didn't move directly to Austin. I went to College Station, which is a college town, very different from Austin. Texas is mostly Republican, you would say.
Yeah.
But Austin isn't. And College Station very much is. It's pretty conservative. So even though it's a college town, there's like that divide of the kids that are going to college are partying all the time, and then all the adults who are very, like, conservative. It wasn't particularly fun. I had some really good friends there, but I was itching to go somewhere else. And Austin seemed like, it's only like a couple hours away. And so eventually I made the big move, and I've been there since. Like, I moved to Austin in 2009.
Okay.
Haven't regretted yet.
Over 10 years. So the first question is Austin related. I just wanted to get like a base there for everybody out there. You had to choose one thing right now. Like, Austin is going to cancel one or the other, and you've got to choose live music or barbecue.
This is not going to make me popular among your listeners, but live music, because, that's a very selfish answer. I still eat barbecue, but I haven't been to a live show in forever. And part of it is, even before COVID, I remember being to one of the ACLs whenever Arcade Fire was one of the headliners.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, this is a lot of fun, but I am getting too old for it.
Okay,
and it just the crowds and the
I'm the same. Concerts are minus COVID. Concerts are a lesser thing than in my life than they ever were. But I just wanted to know. Quick sub question to that: can you give us a definitive answer to the best barbecue in Austin?
Not really. It's Franklin's. I'll trust the crowd with that. Franklin's. I've had it once. I'm not. I don't have a great sense of smell, and apparently that translates to me not having like much of a palate. I'll just eat whatever. So if it tastes good, that's kind of like, that's it. There's no gradation as far as the barbecue. It's just barbecue.
Okay, fair. Joe, you're a traveler. Austin, you ever been to Austin?
No, and I'm disappointed that I've never been to Austin. I've always wanted to go for a football game out on 6th Street. Is that where the area is at? I think I'm probably too old for that now, but I've always wanted to go to a football game there, and it's a great school, the whole shebang. So.
If you're with friends, you're not too old. But the whole like, let's prowl 6th Street to see what happens, that's a young man's game. If you're with friends, and that's, you can just have fun.
All right. My wife's always wanted to go, so maybe at some point. All right. Now, I know from listening to you talk to Stu sometimes and stuff that you are a comic book reader. So just a flat out question, no qualifiers, no time periods, nothing like that. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Okay. All right. That was easy for you.
I was bracing myself for something a little more complicated. No, I'm a Marvel guy.
No, well, these are all easy. All right, Marvel guy. If someone were to put you in a room, okay, and I think maybe this might answer it, but we'll see. Someone were to put you in a room and say, you've got to marathon watch all of the franchise movies from one of these two franchises. which one are you picking? Are you going with the DC Extended Universe films, or are you going with all the Fast and Furious films?
I probably enjoyed the Fast and the Furious ones more.
Okay.
Overall, Fast 5 is probably the best movie out of those entire combined universes.
That was a very good movie, yeah.
As far as just pure entertainment, there's a lot of the DCU that just kind of bores me. And to know that I would have to sit through that, I would just, I go with the F&F.
Okay. All right, fair. Now, the last two questions are food related. You just said that maybe you're one of these guys, you'll just eat whatever, but I still want an answer. This is one we've been asking a lot of people. Neapolitan ice cream, chocolate, strawberry, vanilla. Give me the order from best to worst.
The flavors?
Yeah, the flavors.
I guess, I love all three, but strawberry goes last. I've never just gone out and picked strawberry. And I guess chocolate is best. You mentioned I'm from Peru. In Peru, Neapolitan doesn't have chocolate. It's vanilla, strawberry, and lucuma, which is kind of like it's just a fruit from Peru. And,
okay.
I found lucuma ice cream in a couple of Peruvian restaurants here in Austin, but no, that's part of Neapolitan. So to me, Neapolitan is lucuma, vanilla, strawberry, or chocolate, whichever they put in there. But if we take lucuma out of there, then I guess I'll go vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. That's how it goes.
Okay, that's wrong because strawberry is the best, but it's okay.
I love strawberries, but ice cream not so much.
All right.
I'm with you.
I love strawberry ice cream. I know it doesn't really taste, it's one of those fake flavory type things like grape soda should just be called purple. I've said that before. It's not grape in any way, shape, or form. It's purple, but okay. So the last one, again, going back to Peru, you came over at 22, so there's obviously a lot of time. What would you say is your favorite food dish that you grew up eating? And tell us what it is. Tell us what's in it.
So usually what I order whenever we go to one of the Peruvian restaurants here, which is not often because they're pricey, is it's called lomo saltado, which is like a sauteed steak with French fries and tomatoes and onions. Like it's all like sauteed, and it has rice, and it's hard to put into words like what the spice level is. As far it's not spicy, but as far as spices in there, the seasoning and all that stuff, it's just it's owned by a Peruvian family. I'm pretty sure it is. And and you can tell that definitely, living in the States, that's one that just brings me home really quickly. But I'm also, I'm still on the search for the perfect Peruvian empanada. I've yet to find it. Like I've found several places that do empanadas. They're good, but they're not Peruvian empanadas. It's just, I'm still, at least not in Austin, and the few places in Houston that I've visited, they don't have them. So that's something else. I've learned to appreciate Peruvian cuisine since I moved. When I was, growing up, to me that was just food,
right?
And now here it's just like, it's everything. I love fried stuff, but here everything is fried in a way, and has made me appreciate how much of my childhood and I guess teenage years I spent eating stuff that wasn't fried.
Yeah, you can come east and north, and you'll probably get less fried, or at least northeast.
That's true. Yeah,
California.
And again, I like Tex-Mex and I like all the stuff here, but there's a lot of it.
All right, fair. That's the 5 questions. Now everybody knows everything about Julio that you need to know for the show. If you want to dig deeper, go listen to the Contrarians.
This is all very relevant to the Octagon.
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to talk about something fun for about 10 minutes, and then then we're gonna jump into the Octagon. So, all right, let's talk about the Octagon. Released, I had 2 different dates. I found August 15th or the 22nd, 1 week difference. 1980. So this makes the SFA 80s. Directed by a guy named Eric Carson, who I couldn't find anything else of note he directed, but he did produce 1990s Jean-Claude Van Damme film Lionheart.
He didn't do anything of note, but he did do Black Eagle, which is a Sho Kosugi movie that has Van Damme before he was famous, but he's plastered over the poster now.
Right.
But he also did the coolest move he's ever done. He actually did a split and back up in one motion to duck on a punch. So he didn't just go down, he split, shot back up on his legs. I thought that was the coolest Van Damme move in a movie he wasn't even the star in. I
saw Black Eagle on his the IMDb credits, and I didn't realize what that was, but I could picture it now.
Yeah.
The Kazugi thing, yeah.
And then he did this other one, which was not good, called Opposing Force. I mean, they're like canon movies that aren't canon movies.
Or pre-canon?
Yeah, well, no, they're like canon, same time, just not produced by them.
Right.
So this movie, Opposing Force, we started doing this. We started talking about canon films and doing SFA 80s. I could not remember this other movie, and it's Opposing Force. So if anything, looking up his IMDb has jogged my memory finally on this one movie that I was looking for that I couldn't remember. But it's not a good movie, so that's really all to say about that.
All right, that's fair. Two writers. So Paul Aaron gets a story credit. Again, not a lot on this guy's a lot popular on this guy's resume. He did produce Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey randomly. But then the other writer, this is interesting, Lee Chapman. This movie was written by a woman.
That's what shot out to me too. I was surprised.
The Octagon, starring Chuck Norris, written by a woman. She wrote the screenplay and half of the story. She wrote the pilot for Walker, Texas Ranger for him as well. She wrote episodes of Wild Wild West, Mission Impossible. And before all that, she was an actress in the 60s and 50s. She acted in episodes of McHale's Navy, Combat with an exclamation point. And she was a semi-regular on The Man from U.N.C.L.E. She was the receptionist for one of the two characters. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The fact that the Octagon was written by a woman, I don't know. I don't want to sound like that guy, but I just the whole story, just a bunch of people kicking ninjas and shit. That doesn't always just like, you just think it's a bunch of dudes doing stuff like that. So that's very cool. That's very cool.
It doesn't feel like a feminine point of view.
Yeah.
Like there's, I think, two female characters, and there's nothing that would indicate that they were written by somebody who knows what it's like to be a woman.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it does. They are written like somebody. It feels like they're written by somebody that knows what the audience expects. I guess, like the people that are going to see this movie. So it makes sense that she's been written for TV for a while.
She was around for a long time, and she was around for quite a while afterwards. There was more credits after that. It was filmed in Los Angeles. Between December of 79 and January of 80, and the Octagon camp, the ninja camp, whatever that was called, was filmed in Mexico. So that's all the little technical stuff. Joe, let's get into the cast. I want to hear about this cast. First thing I want to say about this movie, cast included, is this feels like a late 70s or 80s TV show. It does not feel like a movie in any way, shape, or form to me. I felt like I was watching an episode of Chips or Buck Rogers or something along those lines, between the acting levels, the haircuts, everything. So Joe, go ahead, give us the cast.
That's exactly the point I would make too, is that, it even had the music like I was watching the A-Team or something,
totally,
or the $6 Million Man. Yeah, definitely a TV show, and I think a lot of these actors did a lot of TV. But, we start off as Chuck Norris. I mean, how many movies has he done, right? I mean, I guess everybody know him now as Walker, Texas Ranger. But, I mean, he did, he started out, I guess his first couple roles he did with Bruce Lee, right? He got his butt kicked by Bruce Lee in Way of the Dragon. All the canon movies, A Code of Silence, Invasion USA, Missing in Action. My personal favorite is Hero and the Terror. That was one of his last, 80s movies.
That was like the horror one, right? Where it was like a serial killer. I never saw that, but I'm always like, Chuck Norris did a horror movie. Yeah. Interesting.
And the Force Vengeance. So, I mean, people know Chuck Norris. People know most of his 80s movies if you're a fan of that kind of genre. Next is Lee Van Cleef as McCarn. I actually thought he was more famous than he was because of movies like this, and then he was Good, Bad, and the Ugly, right? Did a lot of Westerns, a lot of TV. And I really kind of liked the guy. But I always thought he was more famous. I thought he was a badass for some reason. He scares me. And
he's like a 50s and 60s era Hollywood bad guy, Yeah,
he did A Few Dollars More, Good, Bad, the Ugly. He also was The Master, the TV show, ninja show, which of course I loved. And he did that one. Although it was hilarious when he was already, 60 something. They had the stunt double with the fake skull cap.
Yeah. You're missing a big one too. Escape from New York. He's the
oh yeah. No, I was all down the bottom of my list.
Yeah.
Yes, he's in that one too.
So he was a bigger name than Chuck Norris when this happened. No?
I don't think so. That's the point. I don't think so. But he was just sort of always a character actor. I thought he was. I don't necessarily think he was.
I think Chuck Norris was. I think I read somewhere this is like Chuck Norris's third starring film. And so I think Chuck Norris was like a new up and coming star, and Van Cleef was kind of more like the guy that was like always a character actor who had been around a lot longer. I had no clue he was going to be in this. When I saw him, like, Lee Van Cleef with his giant earring.
I know, that was pretty cool too. But I mean, he started in the 50s, so acting and TV. And I guess that's what happens when you have so many TV appearances, that when you basically have a contract with the studio, because you appear in every TV show, one episode practically. I assume
he was
a way to make a living.
And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. A good example of that. So then, moving on, you have Karen Carlson as Justine. I mean, lots of TV. I don't really need to single out any of them jump out to you. Just TV. Very attractive lady.
Was that Christine, the woman he meets in the very beginning, or the woman that he deals with throughout the movie? Kind of.
The woman he deals with throughout the movie is Justine. The one before that, unless she's Nancy, the one. That,
okay, so Justine Karen Carlson, she is to me like she's 70s, 80s actress on a TV show. Like,
yes, exactly.
They just printed her out and threw her in different. You're going to be on Columbo, and you're going to be on Kolchak the Night Stalker. They just made her a million times and then threw her out there. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure she tried. She probably tried out for, or hit the casting call for Charlie's Angels, just didn't make the cut or something like that. But yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. I just lit lots of TV. I'm not going to list the credits. And then some movie I never heard of called Fleshburn, which I just said that because that's a funny name. And then we have Art Hindle as AJ. John, you probably seen him in Black Christmas. I've not seen that. So
I saw Black Christmas a few years ago. I don't remember him at all.
He had looks like he had a decent part in the Donald Sutherland Invasion of the Body Snatchers, late 70s.
Haven't seen that in a long time.
And both Porky's.
Here's another. We always talk about like my little blind spots here and there. I've never seen a Porky's movie, and not that those are like they're not like some kind of big thing. But for a guy my age, I should have seen at least Porky's one. I should have tried to watch it on HBO. I've never seen Porky's, and it's always on Amazon Prime. And I'm always like, I'm going to watch Porky's, and I'm always like, I'm 46. I probably should not watch Porky's.
The window has closed.
Yeah, I watched it in 2005, so I was still in my 30s.
So the window has closed on that one. I think
it's over. I think if someone finds me watching Porky's, an FBI van might show up at my house. I don't need that.
I mean, there's only one reason in the world that I know what a glory hole is, and that's because of Porky's.
There you go. Sure, Joe. I believe you on that.
Carol Bagdasarian as Aura. She's another TV person. Looks like she did a few episodes of Mannix, but she wouldn't even very cookie cutter because she's very exotic looking. Obviously, the last name, she's not Northern European, put it that way, but she's beautiful. But just,
this movie, the editing in this movie wasn't very good. And there was a scene that like caused great confusion to me. I'll jump ahead a little bit. The scene where her and Chuck Norris sleep together, she takes her shirt off and you get, side boob. Mm-hmm. And then it immediately cuts to the villain like training with and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? What just happened? I was just looking at a boob and now I'm looking at this guy, and then it cuts back to them kissing. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
And there's a whole bunch of people. I got a couple more people, but he could keep going to probably these other TV people that in the show. But I just noted Brian Libby because he was the guy from Silent Rage. He's sort of in the background as one of these toughs, but I recognized him right away because he's from Silent Rage, and I guess he was in Action Jackson and stuff too. But the guy's just huge and just scary looking, so he stuck right out to me. But the ninjas, Tadashi Yamashita as Sakura, is, Scott James' brother. He's obviously this alternative occasionally to Sho Kasugi in the canon realm. He was the Black Star Ninja in American Ninja. Yeah, he's been a bunch of others. I mean, he didn't have as big a filmography as I would think for a guy who could play that type of role as a bad guy because he's scary looking. I think he had a role in Rising Sun also. And then John Fujioka as Isawa the teacher, who I assume is their father. But he's also the trainer, the father figure in American Ninja. He's Steel Dawn, which...
Yeah. Oh, he was Patrick Swayze's his sensei in Steel Dawn. I knew I recognized that guy from somewhere. Yeah.
And I think that's all I have to say. The cast, except the most primo cameo in the whole movie. Anyone?
No, I don't know who.
Ernie Hudson.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. You're so right that now, a day after watching it, I'm thinking about I'm going, where the fuck did he go? he literally had one scene, and then you're like, oh, Ernie Hudson, because we're looking at it with 2022,
right?
Everybody knows Ernie Hudson, and then like I'm thinking about like he never came back. Wow. So it was a bit role. So Julio, growing up in Peru, martial arts, pop culture, Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, is that a big thing over there at all? Like over here, it's big in a lot of places, but were you aware of Chuck Norris or Bruce Lee movies or stuff of that nature, I guess?
I was. I when you first messaged me about this, I told you I haven't seen a single Chuck Norris movie, so sure, why not? And then as I was watching this one, I remember, no, I think I've seen them on TV, like, not to where they made an impact. I remember watching an action movie with Chuck Norris, and I think the only thing I remember is that a bad guy had brass knuckles, and I'd never seen those before, and I thought that was this amazing weapon that they'd made up for that movie. And then later on, I found out that no, brass knuckles are just a thing that's part of the world, not exclusive to that Chuck Norris movie. I don't remember anything else. They were mostly like TV movies that would show up, and it's not like, I don't remember going to the movies back home in Peru and just seeing that as one of the big attractions on the movie theater marquees. But on TV, they were on TV all the time. I never really got into the whole martial arts thing. Still haven't. I'll watch a few every now and then, but usually after somebody's told me that they're really good and that I should really check them out. That's why I was trying to cut this movie some slack as I was watching it, because I was like, maybe this is just the way they are, and this is a good martial arts movie. It's just that I'm not familiar with the genre and I'm not used to the pacing and just the way it's made,
this is a poor example of this is a poor example. There are much better ones. Joe, I'm going to ask you before we start talking about the movie a little bit in broad strokes. Maybe it's just me. I started watching this movie last night and I was tired, got a little sleepy. About 20 minutes in, kind of fell asleep, woke up, went back, rewatched the whole thing kind of in a straight shot. Is this movie unnecessarily hard to understand what's going on in it for what the plot is? So here's the plot. Here's what I know about the plot of this movie from watching it. There's a ninja terrorist organization, right? The Octagon, which they never mentioned, I don't think, in the movie, unless I'm wrong. It's like kind of like their base. That's like their terror drome, right?
We don't actually know, because there's even a trivia that said it was the organization. So I assume it's the base. But
okay, so the base. Chuck Norris, from what I've read in other things, is an ex-martial arts champion, but I don't know if they ever say that in the movie. Like, and they don't really ever like tell you what he does. I can tell you what he does. He hangs out in 70s era steakhouses a lot, right? Right, Joe? Like, you remember
the wood paneling?
Joe, being from Connecticut, do you remember Chuck's Steakhouse? Big leather chairs, the little red candle in the middle, the frosted glasses, the wood paneling. So he does that. Okay. There's also some other organization that the ninjas sell people to do terrorist stuff. Like, they train people in essentially Steve Irwin outfits and then give them out to these other people. And stop me if I'm wrong, because
it's like they're like the terrorist temp organization, the employment agency, right? It's like, hey, who needs a mercenary? I got one for you.
Yeah. And essentially Chuck Norris, his character Scott James, he gets involved in all this because there's a murder that he's involved with, and he starts to look into all this. And then we also have the other like aspect of it, that it's essentially the Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow story, where Scott James and the other character are sword brothers of some sort. I don't understand. He's adopted into an Asian, I don't know if they were Japanese family. There's so much fucking going on in this movie, and nothing in the narrative, at least to me, told me what was happening. Julio, did you feel this way?
Well, it took me a solid maybe 30 minutes to realize that they were not law enforcement, that Chuck Norris and his buddy were not, because they're acting like they're police or FBI or something. And then at some point, it just became clear that no, they're just martial arts competitors, and they're there for a tournament. They get tangled up in this thing. They see the news about a terrorist attack, and then suddenly one of them decides that this is not right, and then they start investigating, and then they get mixed up in all this. Hearing you, I hate the fact that I hear you tell the plot, and I'm like, that's not quite right, and that it's possible to have two separate reads of this story, because it should be pretty simple. But I thought that what was happening was that, yes, you have the temp agency, like the guys that put the ads in the newspaper, They're
Right.
like, we want mercenaries. If you're interested, call this number, right? And then you call that number, and if they think that you're gonna work out, then they send you to train with the ninjas. And
It's okay. So it was funneling backwards. I'm sorry.
right.
Okay.
So
No, but it came back forwards because they were trying to ship Aura to somebody else when she wised up. They were ship her to Egypt, so she went to train with the ninjas and came back.
Right, yeah, the ninjas ship you back after you're a ninja. They ship you back to the temp agency, and then the temp agency sends you on missions. I mean, Chuck Norris, all he wants is to stop his friend, was it AJ, from getting himself killed.
Right.
There's throughout the entire movie, people are telling him, "Hey, you need to go stop your brother because you're the only one that can, because you are a good enough martial artist." And he keeps turning them down until his friend decides that he's going to make the trip, and then he goes to stop his friend. And the way that he does that, the way that he finds out where everything is by infiltrating the temp agency. And actually, that doesn't even work, right? Because he goes to the temp agency and he gets...
They know who he is immediately. They know who he is immediately. He uses, his name is Scott James. He uses like a fake, like, I don't know,
Steve Colby or something.
Steve Colby. And even before he gets there, they're like, that's Scott James. I'm like, what is happening in this movie? Like, what is happening in the Octagon? I don't get it.
I have to tell you, so reason I choose movies like this is I like the idea of it, but how it turns out, I don't know, the idea of the Octagon. So my first experience with it, 1980, right? I'm probably still 5 going on 6. I have Siskel and Ebert on, and they started talking about this movie. So it's stuck in my brain as a little kid, right? And all these other, it probably equated too much with good movies, but all those rated R movies that came out in the early 80s, Escape from New York and Blade Runner, all these movies, Conan, that I couldn't watch till later. Octagon stuck in my head as, I got to watch that later. This looks pretty cool. And then I happened to see it, part of it on Channel 61 when we were growing up, probably 1985.
Okay.
And they actually didn't edit it. So when McCartney's swearing, he says horseshit, and I heard it. I'm like, I was amazed. But yeah, so the idea of it is where I liked it. But to me, this movie looks like this writer tried, but had too much stuff. I think there's enough material for 3 canon movies in here because there's so many plots. I mean, is he a champion? Is he unhappy that he blinded the other guy in competition? But he's also a veteran. And it seems like he was doing research, which means he was some kind of secret operative because he has to go to Seattle. And there's like 3 movies going on, right? So that's all I could tell you. You have enough material for 3, so it's densely packed into one incomprehensible movie. But it seems like it's happening. There's just doesn't make any sense.
Now, whatever format you guys watch this on, I had to actually, I didn't realize this, and I apologize if anybody else had to do this. I had to rent it on Amazon Prime, like on the Screen Picks thing they have. Which now apparently I owe them $2.99 a month for it until I cancel it. But one of the funniest scenes of the movie is in the beginning. We get the terrorist, the ninja organization. They send, I guess, some terrorists out to kill a senator or whatever. Did you guys notice how bad the blood was when they blow that guy away? It looked like acrylic paints. I'm like, what is that, Joe? What was the budget on this movie? Did you write that down? Did you have that?
I looked and it said with sources anywhere from 2.5 to 4 million.
Chuck Norris must have gotten paid $3.5 million. Yeah. There was some other stuff that just wasn't working here.
And well, speak also plot point. They just kill that Canadian. Then they're worried about Nancy's brother dies, and I'm like, was that Nancy's brother? Was the Canadian diplomat that he wasn't? I don't know who the hell's killing who. Like, yeah, that's part of the plot again that I couldn't track.
Yeah. All right, Julio. I think this is maybe the most important question when it comes to 1980s The Octagon. A movie I've never seen before. Joe obviously seen it, and you've never seen it. How would you describe what I think might be the most interesting narrative device ever used in a movie in all times? Like, in all times. What's going on with that, Julio?
Well, I thought that we were, because I didn't know anything about this movie. I didn't read a synopsis. All I knew was Chuck Norris and 80s. And so I thought that there was a supernatural element to the whole thing. I wasn't sure that was his voice. I mean, we're talking about voice, right? The whisper with the echo and
oh my God.
And he's kind of what did he say at the beginning? Something like he's talking about starting the story. I'm going to tell you the story, and I'm going to start at the beginning, or I don't know, something like that. And then, so I thought that was okay. It's mystical. There's going to be something mystical about it. And then as the story went on, I'm like, no, it's just his voice. We're just hearing his thoughts.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they're just really creepy the way that they're being executed.
At one point, he says something, I can't remember what it was, but he's like, I think I know what this may be. Ninja,
Yeah.
Right?
AJ, why'd you do this? I was going to talk like this the whole rest of the show.
Show. Julio, would you like, if I'm sure you have a lot of discussions even outside of the podcast world about film, being a film buff and everything. And I know that character narration voiceovers are very, it's something that people like, argue about, like they like them or they don't. Blade Runner with the voiceover is terrible, but it's not without. I've done shows where people have talked about, I can't remember what movie we did. We did a movie that in the last 10 minutes of voiceover starts. It's odd because it feels like it should have been there the whole time. Anybody that ever complains about a voiceover, I think what you should do now is just like tell them watch this movie, because it's going to solidify or not complain about it, but if they're like, I'm not really sure how I feel about voiceovers, would you offer them this movie and say, enjoy the Octagon, and this is going to like scar you? Because I'm telling you, I'm going to forget the rest of this movie by like March. I'm never going to forget the voiceover in the Octagon.
Neither did I.
But look, I wouldn't say I'm pro voiceover, because that sounds way too strong. I would say I'm not against voiceover. What I always say is like, what are you getting with the voiceover? And sometimes even when the voiceover is telling you something that you're already seeing, I think that depending on how it's being executed, you can still get something out of it. The problem with the Octagon is that you don't get anything out of the voiceover once you figure out what's happening, which is just the voice in his head. It doesn't have a payoff. It doesn't have any relevance. I mean, you could have that be his normal voice without the echo and without the whispering, and it's still the same thing. Or you could just remove the voiceover and it's still the same thing. So I wouldn't have anybody sit through the Octagon just to make that point, though. I'm sure I can find better examples of bad voiceover that wouldn't be so much of a chore to get through. I don't know, how long did you guys wait until deciding that the voiceover was not doing anything?
When the movie opened, I thought, well, this is immediately annoying me. Like when he does the first voiceover, and it's like, I think that first scene might've been like that weird, like in red light, like, and he's doing the voiceover. And yeah, within the first three, because it doesn't add to anything. Like you said, it's literally like, I think it might be Ninja. And it's like, well, of course it's Ninja. We fucking saw Ninja. I don't need to see you come to the conclusion. Or you could even like have just a scene where he's like talking to AJ and say, I think this might be Ninja, we get the whole conversation with him and McCarn,
I'm going to put on my contrarian hat. And if I was actually arguing for this movie to be good, I would say that the filmmakers realized that Chuck Norris, as awesome as he is, doesn't have that much of range when it comes to showing emotion, and that the way that you let the audience know how torture he is by having that voiceover, and actually the echo and the whispering is the way that you externalize this turmoil that he's feeling inside, because he knows that this road leads to him fighting his brother. And he knows that he's going to fight against it, but eventually that's where he goes. And maybe that's the rationale behind the filmmaker, making that decision. But I actually don't think that comes through, because it's just so inconsequential.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there has to be good intentions from the beginning. These people aren't trying to make the Octagon. They're trying to make the Octagon. They're trying to make the good version that none of us saw. Right. So there must have been a thought process there. Joe, I've got a question for you. We learn through flashbacks, there's flashbacks in this movie, a little bit about the history of Scott James and his brother. They're very competitive. They're being trained. Again, like the G.I. Joe thing, the soft master, hard master, Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow.
You stole my joke. I had one ready to go.
Do you think that obviously in many martial arts movies, we have the really hard ass, training character, father character. Is this guy the worst guy of all time though? Because so they have that obstacle course they have to do, and they do the obstacle course, and they're neck and neck, right? And by the way, the young version of Chuck Norris was played by Chuck Norris's son. So that was pretty cool. But they're neck and neck, and they've got to race to a point where they pull a katana off of like a rope. They get there, and Chuck Norris's character Scott gets the katana, and then in a momentary, well, obviously we know this guy is going to turn bad anyway, but in a momentary moment of poor sportsmanship, the brother character, what's the brother character's name again, Joe?
Sakara?
Sakara yanks it out of his hand. Joe, what does the father do?
Basically, you're dead to me. Get out forever. Forget his name. I was like, yeah, I was going to point that out too. He just basically gives up on his son 5 seconds because he yanked the sword out of his hand. You brought dishonor to our family.
Dishonor to the family. He tells him, "Leave now," and then he tells fucking Chuck Norris, he's like, scrub his name out of your head and never talk to him again.
I know.
Wow.
His worst dad. I mean, that kind of tracks with the concept of honor, but poorly done with the Japanese culture and all the ninja movies and and samurai.
It would have been nice unless I missed something, it would have been nice unless we knew, like, you know, if we saw like a scene where his dad was like, you know, you're on strike too, buddy, you know, but no, this kid might have been the best kid ever. And then all of a sudden, you know, Chuck Norris comes into town and he beats him in the sword race. And he just does what a lot of kids would do, you know, throws a miniature tantrum. And now this guy, he causes like all the problems that we have in the actual movie itself. Did you laugh out loud at that, Julio? I laughed out loud at that scene.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I laughed, man. I watched half of this movie, an hour, a solid hour of it. I was on the stationary bike. Once I realized that there was going to be a chore, I'm like, okay, I need to be doing something else so I can. No, I probably panted a little harder, but that was it. I love the idea of the dad. You know, you're right. We needed that. Like the Sakura takes the sword, and then the dad comes running, and it's like, again, what did I tell you?
Yeah.
And then we get it. He's a bad man or a bad kid. I'm trying to think if anything in this movie made me laugh. Oh yeah, I did. When what's her name? Not Nancy. The
Justine.
When Justine dies.
Oh, the blow dart to the neck. Yeah. Because
it's just so. I mean, it's the performance. It's not her fault. I mean, it's just the way it's staged. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they're in the middle of getting a cab, so then AJ has to get out of the cab, but then he goes back to the cab.
I know. Well, at least the cops showed up to that scene, right? They're like killing everybody and just leaving them. Or he calls the police. The whole family's dead in Nancy's house, and he just gone the next scene.
Yeah, like
give me the police, and he leaves.
What was I the only one to notice? The editing in this thing was pretty rough. Like it just I know I made the joke about the titty and then the Sakura shot, but I mean there was some really hard edits in this movie, like that just scene transitions that, man, like they could have used the Lucas wipe or something just to make it a little softer. I felt like I was hitting a wall multiple times in this movie. All right, so one of the biggest things, obviously, you're watching a Chuck Norris movie, is the martial arts action. Julio, did you feel like throughout the whole thing, did you get satisfactory martial arts action in this thing?
No, but again, I was cutting the movie a lot of slack because I'm spoiled. I watch action movies in this decade, so I have John Wick on my mind, and so this just pales in comparison. Let's just say that. Yeah, he can kick. I mean, he definitely kick way better than I can, and so that was. And they're not doing any camera tricks. I mean, it's a wide shot and you see him do the kicking. But I never got like particularly excited about any of the action sequences. So I think that it's not for lack of talent on Norris's side. I think it's just that they're not shot in any interesting way. And he's not even giving any interesting opponents. Like even at the very end, I did like the tiniest bit of research. And by that, I mean, I read the trivia on IMDb and I saw that the big fight against the ninja, not his brother, but the ninja.
Kyo, was his name Kyo, Joe? Did you get that down?
Yeah, there's Kyo. I think that was it. Kyo or Kyo.
Yeah, it made the list of like the top 100 fights on some magazine or something. I was like, really? That fight? I mean,
no,
it's a cool costume and stuff happens, at some point they do some fire and there's like ninja stars being thrown and all that stuff, but it's not shot in any way that I was excited about it. So
top 100, really?
Yeah.
It was like top 100, top 150 maybe. Even, I mean, I wouldn't even think about this movie, but who knows? Maybe that list was way back in the 80s, and so at that time it was this really cool thing. But no, just on the subject of Chuck Norris, I've actually seen the man because he used to go to the movie theater that I used to work at, and he carries, or at least at the time, he used to carry like autographed photos of himself. So
Okay.
if somebody came up to him, he already had them ready, and he would just like hand them over. And
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, he knew, he was prepared. So he was like, okay, as long as nobody made any fuzz, he just had a way of just getting through the crowd pretty quickly. And obviously when I saw him, you see him in person, and he's just a dude. He doesn't look like an action star. So that was, I think, probably the biggest satisfaction I got from watching this movie, was to see like, oh, I know that guy. I've seen that guy in real life, and I never thought that he would kick that way, or that he would be able to hold an action sequence, even if it's very blandly shot.
Yeah, you're right. It's bland and kind of static are the words I would use. It's just, there's not a lot going on. I mean, you got to give him credit. That one scene where he goes to infiltrate the whatever they are, the temp agency, to get the job, and he fights all those guys. He does a lot of really incredible kicks in like some super tight jeans. Like, like, if I wear pants that tight and I move the wrong way, there's going to be an explosion in the crotch. And Norris is just his ankles over his head. He's hammering down on guys. No problem at all.
Well, yeah. So that was one of the bigger disappointments, is the fighting. It wasn't choreographed well. Chuck Norris, obviously very athletic, could hang with Bruce Lee pretty decently, the way they drag it. I just think they didn't give him much to do. And if you think about his career arc, right, as the 80s went on, he's getting older, right? He's already probably 40-ish here, I guess. And he stopped doing martial arts and really picked up a gun, right?
Yeah.
But I thought they just, for his skill level, they didn't let him fight enough, and they could have done more.
I've never seen the Octagon. It's been around all my life for the most part. I hear the word the Octagon, and I just immediately think Chuck Norris. I'm expecting a beginning to end, fucking martial arts fight. And this movie is like heavy on the plot, or at least like trying to be heavy on the plot. Yeah, the 3 plots it's got. And then like it seemed to me like, am I right? Was it like maybe half hour before the first like martial arts fight even happened? Like, the scene where he goes, the scene where he goes and brings her home and the family's killed, he fights off like 3 guys really quickly, I think. But like the first like real fight where at the temp agency, that's like 40 minutes into the movie. And then, you get the Octagon scene at the end, which really could have been something. He fights that Kyo guy, who, by the way, his costume was very cool. If there was ever a line of Octagon action figures, his would obviously be made first. But did anybody else think it kind of looked like a cross between? This just kept like coming to me. His costume, because he had a big logo here. It looked like a ninja costume, I guess, put together with the Zodiac Killer costume when he had that thing on and he had the Zodiac thing. It was a very odd costume. But then we get the really weird choice after that to have the main guy he fights, right, really is that guy, because he fights Sakura and we almost barely see what happens at the end of that fight. It's almost nothing. Julio, do you want to talk about like the ending to this movie? It's so anticlimactic.
Yeah, but it's really weird because I was having trouble from even before, because I couldn't understand what the logic was behind having him run the gauntlet. You know what I mean? It's like, do you want to kill him or do you not want to kill him? Because if you want to kill him, they had plenty of chances. Like at some point they capture him, they throw him in a cage, and then but then they release him from the cage and they're like, okay, now you know the way. And so they make him go through this sort of video game stage where he goes from platform to platform and ninjas come at him and whatever. And then he reaches the big boss, which is the ninja Kia. And then after that fight, he gets to fight his brother. The way that they built it up, I thought that the brother would have wanted to fight him fresh. That way you call the win a real win. There's no honor. There's no bragging if you beat him after 20 ninjas and then the big ninja guy actually had a go at him first. So that was really weird. And then the fight is just underwhelming because there's stuff exploding all around them. You can't really see what's happening. What's the name? Aura, she's rallied the troops. She's shooting everybody. We got the spotlight on the fight between Norris and Kia. And then when he's actually fighting his brother, which is the thing that it's been building up to, we keep cutting away to, the compound on fire and just all these other side characters that nobody really cares about. So, yeah. And then I didn't even understand what happened at the end where, so Norris and his brother, they're facing the same way. It's kind of like they're spooning. but they're standing up. It's supposed to be one of those things where you don't know who got stabbed, because they kind of like make this sudden movement and they both kind of like, make a noise like they both got hurt. But then the camera holds, and then Sakura is the one that falls, and then Chuck Norris is still standing. Like freeze frame and roll credits. That's it. No explanation.
Well, the key there was the sun, right? 'Cause you had to get the apocalypse now, like sunrise.
Yeah.
He's like, "Woo," and they're fighting like in the middle of the day, and he stabs them, and then all of a sudden there he is in the sunrise or whatever.
The endings of this movie and the fight, if this movie was made in 2001, it would have been they both swing their swords at each other, and then Sakura's head like slides off.
Yeah,
that's what would have happened 20 years later. It was so odd, and then like it was so, we did a series a couple years ago on the Universal horror movies, and the Universal horror movies literally end mid sentence. Like it's just like, well, I'll see you, boom, and it's like credits. That's what this is. It's like Sakura is still falling to his death, and it's like Scott James, Chuck Norris. It's like it's fucking over. It's over. Yeah, Joe, I'm not disappointed in you, but I am gonna say that I might put you on a one-time choosing hiatus. Okay, so
fair enough.
All right,
I mean, really, Space Hunter, no one can own the place. You can't be put out of
exactly. Joe, do you have any of the box office information? I'm curious what came out around Octagon.
I do. Hold on one second.
What were your movie choices in August of 1980?
Well, so it was hard to find. Like, they don't have a top 5 for that week.
Oh, that's right. Box Office Mojo.
3.
Box Office Mojo goes back to 82, I think.
Yeah, and I got a couple things, and I had the August 14th, but I found.
Okay.
But for that week, number 3. So I have 3 to 1. 3 was a movie called Those Lips, Those Eyes. And
of course,
I never heard that one. Is that a?
No, I have no idea.
It sounds like a teen love story type of movie. Never heard of it. Number 2 was Empire Strikes Back, and number 1 was Smokey and the Bandit 2.
Okay, all right,
the squeakquel.
Yeah, exactly.
And then so the disputed numbers there, based on what they supposedly made at the box office, which is 20 million. So it was a hit, or roughly 20 million, 19 million. It puts it around 36 in the year. I'll just call it that because one list didn't have it, the other one did, but like seems consistently that the money it made was correct. So number 37 was Windwalker, which I've never heard of.
Nope.
Octagon 36. Cruising was number 35. Cruising is Al Pacino. He's
the undercover cop, the gay bars.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I've always wanted to see that. And I think at 46, if I rent that, I'm okay with that one. I think that I can now. See, that's funny. At 15, if I had rented Cruising over Porky's, my parents might have brought me to someone to talk to them. And now I could watch Cruising instead of Porky's, and it's okay. All right, cool.
If Pacino wasn't Porky's, you'd be okay to watch it.
You're right. Yeah, it would have worked either way.
I mean, Cruising was good. I think it had some accusations of homophobia. I couldn't be the one to judge, but the top 10 for 1980, number 10, Ordinary People. You know that one? Donald Sutherland, Mary Tyler Moore, Timothy Hutton, first role, director Robert Redford. Talk about a downer, probably the first in the genre of upper middle class people who are depressed for no reason. Well, the kid did die. Okay, that one's different. That one's different, but their family falling apart. Number 9 is the Blues Brothers. Number 8 was Smokey and the Bandit 2. I don't know if I saw that one or not. I guess I did. I like the original better.
You certainly did.
Coal Miner's Daughter. Not a bad one. Number 6, that was 7. Number 6 is Private Benjamin, which I've never seen, which I heard's good.
Yeah, that's the one that was on HBO when I was a kid all the time, and I just never watched it.
So number 5 is Any Which Way You Can. Is that the first or the second orangutan one? Because Any Which Way But Loose, is that one first?
Loose was first because I think the first one was like in late 70s. The second one was early 80s.
Yeah. So Any Which Way You Can. Never seen either one of those.
Oh, they're fax copies of the same movie. And I always remember, I don't remember which one it is, but there's one that they both end with him fighting a guy in a bare knuckle fist fight. But I can't think of the actor's name. I think it was William Smith. You know the guy who played Conan's father in Conan the Barbarian, that big black-haired, big mustache guy? Clint Eastwood and him have this like crazy fight, I think, in the second one. So I always think of that, but you're not missing anything. You can move along, Joe, and live a happy life.
Thank you. Yeah, I've already have. So, number 4 is Kramer versus Kramer, which I've never seen.
Nope.
The divorce movie. It's Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep. It'll just the concept of it and what my dad told me about it. I will fight to save my marriage till the death because I don't want to get divorced and get into a custody battle just for that movie.
Just watch Marriage Story. It will.
But I've seen that too. That was pretty stressful. Number 3 is Stir Crazy. Isn't that Gene Wilder and
Richard Pryor in jail? That's a great movie.
I've never seen that one actually, but I'm not complaining because you still haven't seen Caddyshack, so you can't really.
Yeah, no,
you can't ever criticize.
I know.
Number 2 is 9 to 5, which I remember loving.
Yeah, 9 to 5 was great.
And number 1, I mean,
Empire Strikes Back. Yeah,
that.
Yeah. All right, SFA 80s. Pint of Comics. Let's rate what we thought of the Octagon. We do 0 to 5 scale here. Quarter, optional. We'll save Julio for last because he is the guest, and we asked him to watch this goddamn movie. He never asked for this. So, Joe, you picked it. So I want to hear what you think about it after your 1985 viewing on Fox 61. Now in 2022, what are you giving the Chuck Norris Octagon?
So first, I'd like to bring up a couple things that I appreciated about the movie. I really think this writer, this Lee Chapman, was really trying to make some kind of a good movie, even though it didn't work. She really tried with some of the dialogue, which I thought was sort of impressive for this movie, which didn't land because the actors are so bad. But when he's talking to McCarn, and McCarn's like, he's talking about like, oh, Randy's working. McCarn says, Randy's working for me now. A man can shoot with one good eye. And because I guess he had blinded, Scott James had blinded this guy in a competition. He said, and McCarthy said, he thinks it's God's will. Blaming yourself is just butting in and taking credit for it. I was like, damn, that's kind of true. Like, if you're going to wallow in somebody's pain. I mean, I thought that was kind of a serious line that just doesn't land in this movie, but I was like, that's kind of impressive for another movie. And then when Scott James was talking to Justine in her house, and he's like, I don't drink. And she's like, you have a personality. I have to manufacture one with a drink. And I was like, well, if that's not really the reason why anybody drinks, I don't know what it is. And then, so that's what I have that. So it was a couple others, but I don't know. I was kind of surprised by those quotes. Yes. Like I said before, I like the idea of this movie. So, I get that in your head as a kid, first at Siskel and Ebert, then Channel 61, didn't see quite the whole thing, and then revisiting an adult. I don't care. I still like this movie. You know what? It's not good. The worst part about the action, I just like the beginning of it. I don't know why. I enjoy it. I'm not going to make, I let you guys crap on it the whole time. I'll take it. Never watch it again. But the action stunk, which is what really dragged it away from me. But I'll give us, for me personally, I'll give it a 3.5.
Jesus Christ.
I don't care.
Fair.
I you know what I do? I also compartmentalize, right? I mean, if this was going up against ordinary people, I'll give it a 1. But
so you sliding scale. I don't. I'm going to pick this as a movie. SFA 80s or not, because we've had some ones that are decent. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't walk away from it going, holy shit, that was like the worst thing ever. But I did take away some points. Like, I thought about it pretty hard because I've never really been a big Chuck Norris fan. I've seen Chuck Norris movies. Chuck Norris is an impressive martial artist, but like, what gave anybody the idea that he was any kind of movie star? He's a charisma black hole. He literally, he's just a blank-faced guy. Like, okay, Jean-Claude Van Damme, right? You get this guy who's obviously he's from Belgium. English is his second language. So, there's that little aspect where people might, like knock that around a little bit and everything. But you know what? The guy, whether you like him or not, there's a level of charisma to Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I think that's the reason that he was so popular during his martial arts movie heyday. Steven Seagal, look, again, notorious douchebag. But I think there's even more of a level of like, kind of like this tough guy charisma that he had going about him, which made him what he was in his heyday. Chuck Norris is like fucking a glass of water that can do a roundhouse kick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is like I don't know, man. He's I don't know. He's on the spicy scale. He's like nothing. You know what I mean? Like a mild, medium. Like Chuck Norris is like as bland as you can get.
He's a green pepper.
He's a green pepper. He's mayonnaise. You know what I mean? Like if you think mayonnaise is spicy, Chuck Norris is too much for you. but again, I kind of applaud it for trying to have like more going on than just like, kicks and punches and everything. But I also have to take away from that because if you want to introduce 3 or 4 plots and meld them together, fine. But you kind of have to remember what your audience is and what you're going for. And the biggest offense this movie has is the ending. Like that ending fight, that whole Octagon scene should have been so badass. It should have made up for everything else. I was hoping to come here today and go, movie wasn't very good. But once they got to the Octagon, it was so good. The one bit I liked in this whole thing was, and it was just one shot, was when he kicks Keo or whatever his name is through the burning. I thought that was a cool shot, but that's it.
Really? Because he just sort of stood there waiting like a wrestler. Like,
well, but that's what I'm saying.
He's getting up, and I'm like, why is he standing right in front of the fire?
But see, do you hear what I'm saying? I'm saying that's the coolest part of this. You know what I mean? It was the one part that got me like going, oh, okay, cool. And then the movie ended 2 minutes later. So I cannot totally diss it and hate on it. But I'll go. I'm gonna go 1.75. I'm going 1.75 for the Octagon. All right, Julio, Contrarians, tell everybody right now before you rate this where they can find you guys, how often episodes come out, what's going on.
You can find us on any podcatcher, really. It's you just look for the Contrarians, will pop up. It's a little tomato looking in the mirror. You can also check our webpage, we'rethecontrarians.com. That's where you can just look at all the episodes all at once. I want to say Spotify and Apple Podcasts still load everything we have, but just in case they don't, the website is where you go. We try to drop an episode every 10 days. So it's like 3 episodes a month. So I'll do the 10th, the 20th, and the 30th, or the 11th, the 21st, and the 31st. It doesn't quite always work. It depends on how long the edit takes, but usually you can count on 3 episodes a month. So we usually do like a fresh movie, a rotten movie, and then the 3rd episode of the month is always like a bonus episode that's picked by the patrons, and it can be either fresh or rotten. So we always get like a pretty good mix of movies. That's pretty much it. We're pretty active on Twitter. I run the Contrarian Prime account. Alex has his own Twitter account at Contrarian Alex, and I always just have a lot of fun talking about movies with everybody. Every now and then I'll be all pretentious and point out when John gets something wrong on another podcast.
He got me. Yeah, and it's funny. He did get me, but I got myself because it was Stu's podcast. I listened back to it and I went, I'm thinking that he won that, and because Stu records so long before. So the story is I did Stu's podcast, Stu World Order, great podcast, check it out. And I railed against the Academy for not giving Steven Spielberg the Best Director award for Saving Private Ryan. Now the movie did not win Best Picture, but he did win Best Director, and not giving Stu shit, but Stu's the wrong guy to have stop me and correct me. Like Julio would have been the right guy. Like, John, you're wrong, and we could have just started over again. Stu is like, Mr. Pop Culture, but not like necessarily about a lot of that stuff. I go back and I listen to it, and as I'm listening, I'm going, I'm 90% now. Again, that was recorded months ago. Like, I think like in fucking June. So now I'm listening, and I'm going, I feel like I'm totally wrong about this. So I made a tweet when I tweeted it out and said, listen to me sound like an asshole, basically, which has happened before on Pint of Comics. I catch myself, but the beauty there is that I cut it out, or I leave it in if we make a joke about it on the show. But the beauty is there. You don't know that I sounded like such a dickhead. So Julio, thank you. I do appreciate that.
It was just funny, and I had such a, because I will correct, like, always in the spirit of fun, I will correct like other people, and I will correct myself and everything. And I mean, I listened to your show, we interact, but I didn't know if I could if I was going to come across as an asshole correcting you. So I was like, I need to phrase it in a way that makes it clear that I think it's funny, and that,
No, I was fine with it. I was totally fine with it. Like I said, as soon as I listened to it, I went, someone's going to message Stu and say, he's totally wrong about that, by the way. And I'm like,
well, it's such a good story too, just because he won Best Director, but Shakespeare in Love won Best Movie, and that's just
travesty. That was a travesty.
So now that's what everybody remembers, and that's everybody's always going to talk about how Shakespeare in Love beat Saving Private Ryan, except that Spielberg won Best Director anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, the next time I'm on Stu's show, when he comes up with that last, we've all been on Stu's show, when he comes up on that last little bit, I have to see this question first, Stu.
He just springs it on you.
Don't just spring it on me, all right?
I've been on top of that one.
All right, so I have another Chuck Norris factoid before I give this movie the lowest score of the night. I don't know if you guys know, but he has his own water bottle company, or at least he did a few years ago.
Okay.
And the only reason I know this is because I guess he lives, either in Austin or around Austin. But a few years ago, there was something happened where the water in all of Austin was contaminated. So you had to just only drink bottled water and, don't use the water that's coming out of the pipes. Don't use it for anything. And this happened. It was only for a few days, but it happened right at the same time that the Austin Film Festival was taking place. And the Austin Film Festival, that means that you had people from all over the States just coming downtown. And Chuck Norris came to the rescue, and he just donated, I don't know, a gazillion bottles of water with his logo there.
I feel better because for a minute I thought you were going to say he held all his water and charged like $80 a bottle. Okay, all right, good. Thank you. All right.
No, it just became a thing. Now everybody was walking around the festival with their Chuck Norris water bottles and just talking about how awesome it was. So,
well, stinking, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it causes me no pleasure to just talk about how much I didn't like this movie. Like I said, it's not my genre. It's not my decade. I know there are people that just live for the 80s aesthetic and the 80s. You picked the wrong contrarian, because Alex is really the guy that will go, oh yeah, it's an 80s movie. And it's just like, that's why I love it. And I'll be like, 80s movies. I would say it's a 50-50 chance that they'll work for me. This one didn't. I've been trying really hard over the past few years to kind of get away from just saying like, this sucks, and just go more like, this didn't work for me. And it doesn't always stick. Sometimes I just can't help myself. In this case, I'm happy to say that it didn't work for me. I understand why it worked for somebody like Joe. Like, you have the nostalgia, you have the attachment from your childhood, and I think that you have more tolerance for like just to look past all the shortcomings and just enjoy the things you enjoy. But then when I rate movies, like I use Letterboxd, and when I rate movies, I just worry mostly about how my experience was. Like, was it a 5-star experience? Was it a 1-star experience? Something in between. And in this case, it was a 1-star experience. Like, I had such a hard time with this movie. It was so dull, and it was just plodding along. And every time there was an action sequence, it did not do anything to pick things up.
Yeah.
And then I had on top of that just this weight over my shoulders of like, do they like this movie?
Well, that's always the case here. It could happen, and we don't take offense to that. It's happened before where, we do the trash, tolerable, and treasure episodes where, I'll pick a treasure and 2 other trashes. It does happen. I think if Joe didn't have the nostalgia factor, he'd probably be on the same page. I'm more along the lines of that. There was a couple things I liked here and there about it, but yeah, all my life I've always thought the Octagon, this sounds like such a cool action movie, and now I know I was always fucking wrong. It's not. It's a 1979/1981 television movie, from NBC that just so happened to get released into the theaters and has a name that just kind of has stuck around forever. So whatever, it was fun. We had a good time. Julio, you're invited back anytime. It was great to finally get you on. We had talked like a year ago about doing something, and just everything with so much
pre-pandemic,
I think. Yeah. So this has been awesome. I appreciate you coming on. Normally, this is the point where I tell everybody to go find Pint. Don't worry about Pint of Comics. You're listening. Go find Contrarians. Go find the Contrarians. Follow them. Subscribe. Start an episode. Go through you guys got to have what, like 180, 200 episodes at this point. There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. We don't number the bonus episodes, so if you count them, I think we're over 200. But as far as the ones that we number, we're probably closing on 150 right now.
Yeah. So there's a movie in there that you love that you're going to want to hear these guys have differing opinions on, and then give you the real opinion. It's all good stuff. Joe, tell everybody out there where they can find you on social media, the scientist, the professor of Pint of Comics, so that they can follow you and see. What was the picture with you, your wife, and your daughter with the What were you wearing? You looked like you were wearing Hannibal Lecter faces.
I know. They were moisturizing masks. You just lean back, but we were leaning forward. It looked like Hannibal
That was
Lecter.
a spooky ass picture.
We were just moisturizing together, and then we're ready for the purge.
All right, there you go.
So you can find me on Twitter at Joe_loves_chem, and the same with that on Instagram, and I'm just Joe Doherty on Facebook. I like to nowadays cleanse my feeds by supporting podcasts, and I like to be on this podcast, and I like when other people invite me. So thank you, Stu, who's I'm sure going to be listening, and a lot of other interesting people I find through social media, and knowing Johnny knows a lot of interesting people that I can now interact with. So thanks for having me, or thanks for letting me co-host, I should say.
Absolutely. All right, Joe, say the words.
See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.